Peace, peace. Shabbat shalom, everyone. You know, hopefully you all had a good, strong. Um, okay, all right, so we good. Yeah, peace, peace. Hopefully everyone had a good, strong. You're well rested. Um, you didn't have any kinks in your strong. If you did, it only made you stronger. Peace, Sister Kashia. So here we are again, another Shema Anu. Let me turn off some of these notifications. Of course, I am Master Antonio, and today we are actually in a new section. We've been on family so long, we didn't necessarily have to. Okay, so that's off. We didn't necessarily have to introduce. Oh, give thanks, Sister Kashia. We didn't necessarily have to introduce what section we were in. Sister Deja loved doing it, but yeah, you know, um, we're here now. New chapter. Exactly. Give thanks to you. Yeah. Peace to you. Um, I'm still getting set up over here. This strong was interesting. Yeah. But new chapter. Just reading that made me think of that segment that Chief did a while back about having new skin. Especially seeing that we're going into the the new season. Peace, Brother Rahim. We're coming up on our spring season, you know, and it's interesting changing the topic and also changing seasons, and flushing out all of the old, which was one of the charges that Chief had given us earlier in the dawning, you know. But, without any delay, I'll go into the preface and we can get into it, you know. So this is a condensed excerpt from the Anu Way Foundations, written by Chief Jagna Haru Ilya Hassan Anu. And it reads, this book is not to be read only once. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. This public should be read daily. Every line in this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. So let's deliberate, right? So we're dealing with economics, and we start with an excerpt from the 14 Keys. And this is from the cooperative economics section. And it goes on to just define economics, right? First, it goes, our economics are the goods and services that sustain our lives. Eco means life or the home, and nomos means to manage. What is currently, economics is the management of our homes or lives and establishing and sustaining homes in a joint fashion. The home is a representation of RNA, will, and spiritual expenditure. This is why sometimes you will hear different religious organizations referred to as the house of, insert here, such as the house of Israel or the house of Judah. The house represents what the person is actually doing and what feeds them and where their installment is. So to sustain and manage one's house is to continue and control one's own will, right? So let's get into it. So when I read it, initially my initial impression of it, when I read that in the 14 Keys, was the controlling of one's will. Like that rang in my mind. It's like, okay, if you don't control your own house, then who's controlling it? If you don't control your how you move on a DNA level, you know, what other influences, what's influencing you, you know. I see a bunch of people in the chat. Yeah, but what's influencing you, right? What's sustaining you? What's feeding you? And what have you joined and contracted yourself with over the course of your life's walk? You know, so, you know, just speaking on the new season and, you know, having new skin, just speaking about shedding some of the things that you may have contracted with that you don't necessarily need. Maybe you never needed it, but you're now in a mental space where you can reevaluate and say, okay, this thing, I used it as a crutch, and I don't necessarily, I never should have, you know, aligned myself with this thing. I perceptually, I thought I did. When I got stronger, I realized it was a matter of being more receptive to that light or being stronger in my character. Now I realize it's not something that I need. It was just something that I thought I needed, you know. And a lot of us can make contracts with things like that, you know, whether it's certain addictions we may have, certain thought patterns, you know, even the places we live, relationships we have. And we don't necessarily realize that we're free to do away with them or make them make make them a much deeper like make them a staple of our lives on a much deeper level. You know, if we're gonna have this relationship, then all right, let's do it. You know, not like that, but you know, let's do this thing that we say that we sort of the angles that we coincide on. If you and I are in agreement with our philosophies and the way that we move, then let's not hold anything back. You know, let's be free in our expression with one another. Let's be free with, okay, you're doing this, I'm doing this. There's nothing between us that says that we shouldn't assist one another if we're going the same direction. And if we're not, then why are we constantly you know, what you doing? What we doing together? What we doing around each other? If we're not headed in the same direction, are we going to slow one another up? Is one constantly scheming against the other? You know, and this is important in economics because you do have, even in certain cultures, you can't really do any business with certain people unless you like if you do business with Japanese, y'all gotta go to dinner or y'all gotta do something social before y'all get into, you know, the nitty gritty of the business. But I haven't greeted everyone in the room. So peace Dr. Gertrude, peace Imanaya, peace Sister Deidre, um, peace Alma Randy, peace Mama Arlene, peace Alma Cruz. Yeah, peace. Yeah, man. TPS says, yes, there are gremlins that store in bags hidden deep in the pockets when no healthy coping mechanisms exist. Folks go in their bags and pull out old faithful dysfunctional reactions. Yeah, good old faithful. Yeah, well, for sure. Yeah, you pull them out and somewhere in the back of your mind, or maybe even in the front of your mind, you know, I really shouldn't be doing this anymore. Like sometimes you say like, what's it like? You're too old for that, or I'm too old for this. But sometimes things get old inside of us, you know, and they need to go. Like this is too old for me, if that makes sense, you know. But going on to the um, first sentence. Our economics are the goods and services that sustain our lives. Eco means life or the home, and nomos means to manage, right? So the goods and services that sustain our lives, which was different from like the first time I heard economics, it was in high school, and it was like we were given or junior high, we were given like a list of electives we could choose, and you could choose um, computer or, but I chose art, of course, and but there was also home economics, and I was like, what's that? And someone was like, oh, that's just like sewing and things like that, like knitting and sewing and cooking, and it's like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna be over here drawing. So I thought it was just stuff that girls did. I didn't realize until a little later. It started. You walk past the television, and I walked past the television. My old man was watching like NBC or something like that, MSNBC or something like that, and they would talk about economics. Economics. It's like, oh, it also deals with money. So why is it home economics? That deals with girl stuff, but it also deals with money. Like, where's the disconnect? Or like, how many dots am I missing here? So that was interesting for me. Just with the economics piece, and now we have this idea of it's actually what sustains our lives. You know, so what do we have now that sustains our lives? What's sustaining me? That's what I thought of. What's sustaining me? And sometimes we tether ourselves to things that we think are sustaining us, but they're actually slowly killing us. It's just satiating. It's not sustaining, and it's a rough ride to distance yourself from it, depending on your level of attachment or dependency or investment in it. You know, okay. She said, yes, that werewolf response. After the bloodshed, you sit there with your head in your hands, lament, and say, I did it again. Yeah, you got all of the, you got like 3 cheeseburgers sitting on your stomach, all of them half eaten. Like, oh no, what's wrong with me? What am I doing with my life? Um, yeah, it's funny because knitting, sewing, and cooking saves a lot of money for a home. There are entire industries capitalizing on people not knowing the value of home economics. Yeah, that's true. That is true. You could save a whole lot of money. I save a lot of money because I make my own food. You know, you you get enough groceries and I've seen people do it. Like, there are certain families I've seen where the wife shops for like 3 months. They have the storage unit in their house, like in their basement or something. They have the storage cooler and their pantry. She goes out. She said, I go out. I go to places. She goes to the wholesaler and she comes out with, and they're good for months. They don't have to worry, and they could just do it on a schedule. So you buy what you need, put it on the shelf, and every so often, you check the inventory levels and you see, okay, we're low on this, we're low on that. We still have this from like a month ago. Nobody's eating it, so we're not gonna buy it anymore. It's like these are some of the things that women do in the home. When they're managing the inventory. So that's one of the things that I see as a good example of home economics as well. And the same goes for clothing. Jeez, I grew up in a time when I'm sure it was before my time too. When I was growing up, if you didn't have like a label or a logo on the clothes that you were wearing, it was the misconception that you were poor. It's really, it's a weird It's a weird thing because there's no benefit to looking rich. There was no benefit to it. You may have, had some relationships that you may have formed because of the perception that you put out. But other than that, tricking people into thinking you got some dope until you actually, like, you fake it till you make it, it is really no benefit. This shirt keeps me just as warm without that logo. So I don't necessarily need it. You look at millionaires or billionaires, people who own the world, or own a large share of the human world. they don't really they don't really dress like that. They just wear simple stuff. Steve Jobs, he wore the same old outfit. He used to dress like a cartoon character. He opened up a closet, black sweater, blue jeans, all day, every day. It didn't really matter how he looked. As long as his clothing fit him, he was comfortable, and he could move in his role. That wasn't really the major issue. So going out and spending most of what you bring in um, monetarily, you spend a huge chunk of that just to satiate someone's ego. Because it's not really the self-esteem. A lot of people say, "Oh, she's gonna have low self-esteem in school." It's a bunch of egos running rampant, and you're being pressured to buy something that you don't necessarily need, as opposed to funneling all of those funds back into your home economics. So what I wanted to ask, of course, what I asked myself, what is sustaining me, right? And that's the question I have for the chat. Like, what's currently sustaining you and your family? So what sustains me in terms of right now, I do work a 9 to 5, which is something that you want to move away from, but something in your mind says, you know, but if there's a plan in place and you say, I'll work this job until, X amount of time, and then I'll leave, then there's a different sort of mind state that you can have, which we'll see in later chapters. But moving with that, you have to move in a sense of urgency to say, I'm only here for X amount of time, right? And while you're doing that, you're building businesses, and you slowly transition out of it to make sure that your family is still sustained. And it's a difficult place to be in when you realize you shouldn't be there, and the way that you set your life up, you're there because you're on the you're there because that's the contract that you made socially, so as you transition out of it now, you're like getting new skin, what kind of skin are you going to be wearing? And that helps you to move towards something instead of saying, I got to get out of this job, I got to get out of this job. Nah, this is like Chief had said during one of our fasts, you could look at it as just, okay, I'll fast for 3 days and then I can eat again. Or you could look at, this is the way that I live. I keep my body clean. I make sure that I give my digestive system a rest. I make sure that I commune with the Most High on a more spiritual level. This is the way that I live, as opposed to I need to get out of this or I need to change. Because it's similar to I need to stop eating this way, or, oh, I did it again, I need to stop. Instead of that werewolf type of guilt, you move towards being a better person. And that'll help you to grow a lot more than just, regret or fear-based knee-jerk reaction. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Let me drop it immediately. TGS says it is. Oh, my bad. Sister Kashia says, Ken, home economics and human family relationships class, where you had to bring home the program baby doll. I don't think our high school could even afford those little dolls. um, they were offered in high school. Not sure if they still offer those classes. Yeah, that would be interesting. I think ours was like an egg. It's like, yeah, get a carton of eggs. We ain't gotta spend no money on no dog. Um, Chief Yuya says it's sad if or it's sad to change myself to the styling whims of another person to the point I wear their entire name across my chest as evidence to being owned. I gain social access to. Oh, okay, if I change myself to the styling whims of another person to the point I wear the entire name across my chest as evidence of being owned, I gain social access to more desirable circles. Yeah, yeah, that's real sad. Um, Chief also says, I couldn't see any sane home economics class being offered in Western culture, Sister Kashia, when we live in a time where we have classifications like and with or without penises. Yeah, it's all topsy turvy. It's not even like flipped upside down. It's like I don't know. It's just like a mess. Sham Joy says various skill sets are sustaining me. I'm working on gaining more skills to be self-sustainable. The will of Yah is also sustaining me. Okay, good, good. Peace and Makuya. Sister Imanaya says they offered home economics at my high school when I attended, but they don't offer it anymore. I wonder why. Okay, so economics is the management of our home or lives, and and establishing a sustaining and establishing sustaining homes in a joint fashion, meaning that it's not just you in the middle of nowhere, um, you and your family in the middle of nowhere. It's a bunch of different families interlinked, and when I read this section, it brought to mind the previous chapter, um, which dealt with collective work and responsibility, right? So I'll get into that too, but I think Chief answered the question. Grace, obedience to truth-based law, ownership is something I stress among my progeny. Also, investing in proper food, water, and movement has kept me in the right state to be good stewards. Uh, that was back in the 70s, Sister Naya. They were teaching y'all. They were teaching y'all how to load blocks of ice in the ice box and pick up milk delivery off the front steps. It's a due day now. True, Chief. Baba MGC says, true, Chief. Many of those popular brands are not even interested in melanin rich wearing their brand. They create with their with other folk in mind. Further evidence of wanting to be in a culture that don't want you. Yeah, exactly. Baba MGC. You're trying to buy in. It's like trying to buy your way in. Like you try to go to a country club. You got your golf clubs, you got all your gear, you got your gloves on, you got your short shorts, your golf shoes, and you got your visor. You got the look down, and you're like, yeah, I wanna register for membership. I say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't really register people who don't live in the community. But I live up the street. I bought my house. My house is right next to the owner. It's like, oh, okay, well, you can fill out an application. They know they ain't got no. They got the backup application at the bottom. It's like, yeah, put these under your desk, Suzanne. Anytime one of those Melanin rich people come, just give them the application and don't call them. You know, you're trying to buy your way in, and you lose a lot of what you are because of it. Yeah, but this is from the chapter Ujima in the 14 Keys, and one section that I saw and I just wanted to pull from it says, our existence cannot be sustained outside the overlapping factors and coalitions that make up what we call the greater family. These overlapping components act interdependently purposes of community sustainability, pursuit, personal pay in comparison to the perspective in that I blanked out for a second. There's an interest here in comparison to the perspective that individuals are upheld by the cooperative institutions that assign a sense of group esteem, self-respect, and security covering. So I thought it was very key to touch on that, because it speaks to what comes in the next segment, right? You're dealing with sustaining homes in a joint fashion. You're not just building up your home for you and your family to struggle alone. You know, the more people that you can sort of link up with, the stronger that link is going to be. And you'll find the less work you have to do. You know, collective work and responsibility. You begin to develop your niche in the community. You know, this is what our family do. You know, this is what our family does. The house of. You know, this is the house of. You can even say the house of iron. You know, or the house of textiles. This is the house of wood. This is the house of technology, the house of science, the house of education. You know, you have all of these different nets, as Chief had mentioned in solutions. You know, you have all of these different nets where they deal with security, they deal with economics, they deal with exchange of information. And that strengthens you so much more than just trying to be all on your lonesome. Excuse me, all on your lonesome in the middle of nowhere and struggling. You know, every time you need a certain thing that you don't produce, you gotta go all the way back into town, as opposed to walking, you know, across the dirt path. But yeah, I'm gonna need some more of that stuff that you got that I got from you last time. Do you have any more? It's like, yeah, but it's growing slow. It's like, oh, okay, I have some of this stuff. You could probably, you know, add it your crops, and that'll help it to grow faster. Because when we do our composting, we still find that after we cover our crops, you know, we still have enough left over. You could have some of our leftovers. It's like, all right, cool. You know, you work hand in hand, you build one another strength for strength. And it's like my mother used to say with us when we had our chores, like, if you do all of your chores, you know, and let's say someone wasn't able to do theirs for whatever reason, they're like, but I did this, so why do I have to do this? Like stop counting work. Yeah, you all have chores, but that doesn't mean you can't help someone to do their chores, and it doesn't mean that they're not going to be helping you either. Okay, let's see. Safta Gertrude says, we offered home economics in school, but back in the day, we could teach the teachers. Okay, y'all had better home training than the teachers. Chivia says, Aberrandi, that not wanting us to wear those brands is an urban legend. Look at what Jordan did for Nike. Grand Grand Poobah for Hilfiger, Kanye for Polo, Jay-Z for starter brand, Gucci for Gucci. Yeah, yeah, you know, sales triple. Makuya says, I took some sewing and cooking classes. Oh, and typing too. Okay. GPS, I know y'all like the real home ec software. This is for software Gertrude. That's when the irons were made out of steel and the ovens were lit with long matches. Ain't burnt no beans in the kitchen. Yeah, y'all ain't burning no beans in there. Um, and Marlene says, the true software Gertrude, I remember changing the recipes in cooking class and making my own patterns and sewing. Yeah, man, you're doing it. Now it's like so, you know, you hard to find a sister you could get her the thread and needle. Yeah, but I've been having this. I had this hole in my pants for like the last 3 strongs. You ain't gonna patch it. You know, I gotta ask you to patch my pants. Come on. um, let's see. Oh, Sister Naya says I forgot about typing class. Yeah, and shorthand. Shorthand. Jeez. I don't think I think I was coming up when that was going out of style. Um, she says, yeah, Naya, they taught you all how to do Morse code on those telegraph machines. Oh man. Sister Kashia says uh that evolved into computer class beginning in elementary for me. They let you all touch the computers? Computers was like, I don't know, there's like nuclear warheads. Children weren't allowed around them. Like it's too expensive around my time coming up. Um, by high school, we were maxing proxies and get past block pages for Black Planet and MySpace. Yeah, MySpace. Good old Tom. I wonder what Tom doing now. Um, Sister Naya says, I never got to take shorthand, but I traced my grandmother sometimes. Top tier speaker says, I remember being the only one excited about making fruit bowls in my home economics class. I was the only one who knew how to remove the pineapple core. Teacher didn't even know to inform the students. I just eat it. I just skin it, cut that in slices, and just eat the whole thing, core and all. I didn't even know people did that. So I learned something new. Sean Joy says, same Sister Kashia, one of my exams was coding a computer game. Really shows how we got to metaverse. Yeah, I never made it past Mavis Beacon in computer class. Like we did typing and a little bit of Word, and that was it. I was out of that class. Um, oh, making proxies. All right, I was like, you're always in the future, maxing proxies. I let it slide. Um, they were wondering why their tongues felt weird. I had a good laugh. Home economics, I don't think so. All right, so that's why my tongue feels weird when I eat pineapple. Yeah, the more you know. Chief Yuya says, we at home economics and woodshop. I have a pillow I made in home economics until this day, and I still have the spice rack I made in woodshop. Those were some grounding classes for sure. Yeah. Um, yeah, Imogria says, I didn't get a computer until I was in high school. Exactly. Like, I would go to the like 7th grade class when I was young to play those. It was like a video game that would teach you math, and I always used to like. That's the only time I enjoyed doing math. Um, but that was like when I liked math because it was easy for me to follow. When they started adding a new dimension with variables, it's like what? I eventually got it, and it's not as hard as I thought it was. It's probably more me being attached to the old way of doing things instead of realizing, no, this is part of it too, but you just weren't ready for it yet. Um, And McQueen also said, I remember mechanics too in high school, but the young man took those classes. Okay. Sham Joy says they limited those home economics to certain schools there. It was like 1 in 10 schools. Why is home economics hated on so much? Um, Sister Gashia said, yes, Sham, they trained the generation cohort we are in perfectly to fit into the metaverse. We were coding without realizing, probably why technology comes easy for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mavis Beacon, Sister Sham. You know the vibe. You know what's going on. I used to crash the car everywhere. All kind of bugs on my windshield. Chief Via says, in contrast, mm, one school I sponsored in Nigeria taught computer classes with no computers. They drew pictures of keyboards on the blackboard and just memorized commands. Of course, I bought computers. I actually um, saw an image on the internet like that. Um, they had the whole thing like he drew Microsoft Word. He drew a Word document, and I think he was teaching them like different shortcuts and commands. You know, I thought that was fascinating. It's like, how you gonna teach them computer without a computer? But it just shows you like how ingenious, like how far your imagination has to go. You know. Okay, we back. Yeah, I don't know why the internet does me dirty. I guess everybody's surfing the internet on Gigi. I don't. As we have a who's here for high school. Peace for the love, home ec, and uh, parent. Baby, you can see him. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna switch source to Wi-Fi. This is not cool. Yeah. So yeah, at least I had the robot baby. Better low. But yeah, I do feel you on that. I do wish I took more hands-on classes. I took art, and I think my second elective in high school was religious studies. You know, which I mean I did pretty well in both, but I could have just read the Bible at home. I did it anyway. That's why I did well. Because I was always reading that book anyway. So I could have probably went into carpentry or something. Which I still can. There's still trade schools out there. Um, but yeah, I wish I did do it back in the day. I think it would have, add a different dynamic to my character. Um, Sister Gashia says she took it, okay, and she made a stool. Say her mother said she could do home economics at home. All right. Sequoia did wood shop and ceramics. Okay. And Albert MGC said he took woodshop, or he had woodshop as well, and it was very peaceful when he engaged in it. He regrets not continuing it from that young age, and it would have been very useful as an adult. Yeah, man, we still have a chance to get that new skin. We still have a chance to do it now. Um, So after Arlene says in those days, the boys took classes that fit their role and the girls took classes for homemaking. Yeah, yeah. That's why the first time I saw home economics, I was like, that's a girls class, but I I need to know how to cook. I did put it on the list of electives that I chose. So it was like I think I chose home ec, computer, art, um, some other stuff. I don't remember, but I remember choosing home economics and home economics, art, and I think I wanted to go into either technical drawing or yeah, technical drawing, and I think I chose auto as well, but I got stuck in art. Kashia says you will only see the sweet boys and the girls who struggle with grades and classes in home ec. Bugs, yeah, bugs on the windshield. Granny. We didn't have the parent classes either. However, we had a band of pregnant girls in high school. Most of my homeboys were on the second job by the time of graduation. We were we were in the trenches. Yeah, man. You know, I mean, it never came as a surprise when you saw someone, swelling up and then they just disappear. I don't know. I mean, some days I see on American TV, like when I was growing up, you would watch stuff like True Life or things like that, or 16 and pregnant. I was like, she going to school pregnant? Like people over here, they too shamed. Like you find out your daughter pregnant, she disappeared for 4 years, come back as a new person. You would think it was like like how the Chinese government get them. Chinese government put a black bag over here. She come back 5 years, and she's a nun. Um, I'm froze. I think I should be back. Um, okay. I think I'm back. Let me know if I'm back. But that was a little while ago. All right. I'll read this. Oh, okay. Loud and clear. You're glitching. You're chopping out in the matrix. I think that was a couple minutes ago. Uh, Chief says, yeah, man, that's a real thing. The government provides computers to teachers now, but most schools in the bush still have no computers. But yeah, man, that's something that it would definitely help them because I've seen so many ingenious inventions made um, from children who live in that area or youth who live in that area. They make Wi-Fi boxes, they make little robots. I saw someone like doing a whole DJ set of like 3 phones. you you would swear he had a whole mixer in front of him. Just making something out of nothing or next to nothing. Yeah, let me pause and get to the next sentence. Okay, so you're sustaining homes in joint fashion. The home is a representation of RNA, will, and spiritual expenditure. And this is why sometimes you'll hear different religious organizations referred to as the house of, you know. So you have a representation of RNA, will and spiritual expenditure. And that's important because it's what's driving you forward. It represents it. It's not like it isn't your RNA. It's the outward expression of it. So it's similar to even physiognomy. You can see the expression of what a person is by looking at their face, or you can see an expression of what someone is, or where their allegiance or investment is. Sometimes by the clothes that they wear, sometimes by the activities that they engage in, or even the media that they intake. That's an investment. and your home is it usually represents that. It's easier to see with younger people, like especially back in our day when you would always see like rooms full of posters and pictures and stuff like that. Like all of my posters, like I made all my posters. I didn't have poster money. My wall was always filled with my own drawings and my own artwork, and I would often use it to chronicle like, okay, this is where I was 3 years ago, and this is where I am now. And then I would always have like images of like maybe on my screensaver or something. I want to be able to do that, so it would show me like this is where I'm moving. This is like a roadmap for me. This is where I am, and this is where I'm trying to get to. And the closer you get to it, the more you realize, okay, these are some other things that I can pick up along the way that will strengthen that. And your home eventually becomes a representation of that. You don't start out with a survivalist starter pack. Sometimes you just start out with, I need a roof over my head. Okay, we need more comfortable bedding. Okay, we need cups. We need, like, when I moved into my first apartment, we need cups. We need shower curtains. We need washcloths. It was simple things. And then it moved into, okay, we need to save money on power. All right, when we leave the house, turn off the breakers. It starts to shape your culture now. We never left anything in the kitchen overnight in terms of washing dishes. That was some culture I had from one of my jobs. I couldn't leave work unless the kitchen was clean. I ain't going to bed unless the kitchen is clean. You know, you can move in ways that augment your living experience, and it's not just for your outward expression, but it also helps you to augment your inner expression. Okay, do I go to bed with dirty thoughts or unclean thoughts? Do I waste power or do I waste energy? It helps you to move in that way too. Am I eating properly? Let's go out and buy some good food. You go and buy some good food and say, huh, this actually lasts longer and I don't have to eat as much. But I still have to go out and buy food. Can I grow food? It grows over time as you address the issues that are right in front of you. But if you dawdle on those issues, then they start to back up and compound. And it feels like it's hard. It's so hard living on your own. It's so hard to do this. It's not really hard. It's just you're procrastinating, and all of your responsibilities are like snowballing. And that inner dialogue, it starts to take its shape in your home. You walk into someone and they're always hoarding, or they're always the room is always messy, or they tell you to take your shoes off and you come inside the house, but then as soon as you set foot on their floor, it's all kind of dust. you know so it lets you know that this person may not be as consistent as they want you to think they are. All of these things can be shown in your home, even with the amount of studying that you do. If someone has a bunch of books on their shelf and you go to the shelf and it's like, oh, okay, you read this book too? It's like, no, I didn't really read it. I watched this YouTube video and they told me it's a good book, so I went out and bought it. It's like, oh, okay. When you gonna get around to reading it? I don't know. I never had time. Well, how long you had it? I had it for like 10 years. I didn't. Okay. you know. Let me see if I can catch up with these comments. Okay, so Imakuya says the sisters at her high school, when they were pregnant, they basically had classes on how to take care of their baby. And there were so many pregnant teens in school. Chief, you just said just that regular hood stuff. DJ Sham, you get used to it. Imagine my friends made fun of me from the ninth grade all the way into my 20s for not having a seed. And that's the slave swag. Breed for massa. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I was back. Okay, cool. I wasn't listening to y'all anyway. I wasn't caught up at all. Let me catch up so you catch the smoke signals in case I go out again. She just says, yes, Sister Cleo, we didn't have that, but the district should have hired more professionals for that. They usually try to push those sisters into the alternative school GED classes. Hmm. Those fighting words. You tell them they're reading from Massa, but it's true. Yeah, Sister Sham. Imanaya says, I remember they had a special school for pregnant girls here, and that's how you knew girls were pregnant because they disappeared from class. Okay. Huh. All right. I mean, the population difference, I guess, but a whole school just for pregnant girls. Yeah, that's a new thought for me. Imanaya. Queer Lisa says, yes, those who didn't have support from their parents were placed in those classes. But I also know some girls who were pregnant. Their parents wouldn't allow them to be separated. Chief says we had no we had no take home. Oh, we had to take home ec typing, and if you were a boy, you had to take woodshop mandate. This was in middle school. This was in middle school, whereas one of three Moorish children that in that school. My high school was all more. Huh. That would be that actually is a good idea to have these things as mandatory. I don't think life skills are taught enough. Just how to feed yourself and clothe yourself, what to eat, how nutrition works. Like those things seem, I don't know, maybe those things are assumed to be taught at home. But as the science improves, like when you want to, teach these things to your children, or are you assuming that the parents should be on top of it? I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much on the school, but it should be something that's discussed. You discuss gym. Y'all got home economics. You should be exercising at home, but they make sure you do it there. But I don't know. Um, Soft Only says, what sustains me now is that I can make almost anything I need. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, oh, the DJ phone set was in Jamaica. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, but that was so impressive to me. Like I was like, what he doing that on three phones? And he has them like on a Domino's table, like a small Domino's table, and a surge protector. With all the phones on charge. Yeah, but if you were outside, you wouldn't be able to tell. You know. Brother Lowe says all my posters came from Word Up magazine, and they're like, um, Softer Gertrude says sometimes the pregnant girl left with their mothers, and when they returned, the child was not their child, but their sibling. Oh, yeah, deep cover, undercover. All right, I think I'm almost caught up. Okay, yeah, I think I'm caught up. Chief Julia says, oh yes, after when sisters went down south and came back with a little brother or sister, we always knew that was up, what was up, but you also didn't speak on it, at least not to their face. Mm-hmm. That hoarding thing is real. Um, it is a representation of one's mind. Yeah, man, you can't let go of certain things. You can't, you live in the past. Uh, Stuff to Gertrude. No, we were not allowed to speak on it. It was just understood, Big Mama. Hmm. When I say anything, I'm referring to. Oh, you mean you can make anything you need. When I say anything, I'm referring to the necessities like food and clothing. I'm now learning healing herbs, and some forms of shelter, which is good. That's really good. Softer. Brother Lowe says my home class was serving my pocket was sewing my pockets shut during basic. Okay, your home economics class was sewing your pockets shut during basic training for having your hands in your pockets. I can't sew straight, that's for sure. But watching Granny sew helped a little bit. Yeah, yeah. There's some things like it was just me, and I don't think anyone was home. But I had to go out, and there was like a hole in my pocket. Long story short, like I was doing the most. I was in the kitchen making stuff too. I didn't feel like walking from one place to the next place to put the knife up. So I put it in my pocket. I always have sharp stuff in my pocket. I don't know why. But I put the knife in my pocket. I was walking around and it cut a hole in my pocket. Down there, slid down my pants leg and took a toe. So I was like, all right, we ain't doing that no more. But yeah. Yeah, sewing pocket share. Home ec is a rite of passage. When I was 8 years old, my father made me and my older brother, who was 13, build our own bunk beds out of raw lumber and aluminum. We used power tools and a carpentry book. That is so cool. You know, we had to learn. We didn't learn any of those skills until we had to start working. I think I started working like summer grade. I think it's like 10th grade. I worked summers with my old man on construction sites, and you would learn different things. I learned, well, I like demolition, and just put the jackhammer in my hands, get my headphones, and get out of the way. And and I had to learn how to do a lot of the office work, like a lot of the math and um, quantity surveying and stuff like that. So I was always in the office, which I didn't like because I was like I felt like I was missing out on the manual skills, So I gotta rectify that. Um, had to get it right, or two beds would be one. Yeah, no one trying to share no bed. 13 years old. Um, Imakuya says, I find it interesting that the home is representation of RNA, will, and spirit. So RNA would carry the instructions of the DNA, will, and spirit. Okay. So, yeah, what's your take on that, Imakuya? You said you found it interesting. Yeah, I'm interested in what you found interesting in it about it. Can you give an example of how it would work in real life? Okay, Chief says my mother taught me how to sew when I was a wee little thing. She made our clothes, soap, and grew our food slash cannabis. Home ec started very early for me. I raised my children the same way. Yeah, we had to do our home ec was chores. Like there was a list. There was a certain day when you had to do certain things, and everybody had their days. You know, you had your day for washing dishes. You had your day. You had to know how to cook for yourself. You know, you had to know. You had to basically sweep. Clean a certain section of the house. Like on this day, you got like on a certain day, I would have dishes, clean the kitchen. You know, that the kitchen was your thing. Sometimes you try to cut corners and just wash the dishes and go to bed. Like, oh, you clean the kitchen. So the kitchen was one. One had the kitchen. The next one had like the living room. One had the living room. Everybody was responsible for their own bedroom. Um, but yeah, there were days when you had to do certain chores. And to this day, it's nothing to do work for me because I grew up being given work or you do this thing, on this day. And you know how to take care of yourself because you cook. Sometimes I was lazy with cooking. I used to just eat the raw food because I didn't feel like cooking. So I used to eat so much carrots. My brother would say, "You're starting to look orange, bro. You need to slow down." Um, Okay, you're thinking science, but trying to picture what it looks like. But yeah, if you made that connection, see where that takes you. If that part resonates with you. Um, okay, so yeah, this is why sometimes you'll hear different religious organizations referred to as the house of, such as the house of Israel or the house of Judah, or like I was saying earlier, the house of blacksmiths or the house of carpenters, the house of auto mechanics, you know. And then you can have certain families that represent those things. The house of Johnson, House of Johnson and Johnson. You go to certain food stores, you see Johnson and Johnson, but you used to see it and you would think, all right, all their products are quality, you know. And when you start to really do the work, you realize, oh, okay, their win-loss record isn't as spotless as I thought it was, you know. But their reputation like precedes it. You see that and it's like, all right, I see this in everybody's house. This must be the brand to get. You know, your family becomes a brand now. Similar to like in those old movies where they had like those wax seals. And they pour the wax on the letter and they had this seal that they're doing. This is like seal of approval. This is the seal of the house of so and so. Or even in Game of Thrones, you would have certain families that every family had a banner and a sigil, and it would represent their house. This is the house of Stark. This is the house of Lannister, house of Tyrell. And all of these different things actually, these representations of what their families are, these were based on their reputations. The Starks of Winterfell, or the Lannisters of wherever, Casterly Rock or wherever. You know, it represents what they are and their DNA and their will. You see someone with blonde hair walking around, they may not be a Lannister, but you start thinking Lannister. That was my first thought. Anytime a blonde person showed up in that series, it's like, all right, that's probably a Lannister. You see someone with black hair, it's like that might be a Stark. You know, certain, like you were talking about the RNA, like your will is driven through your actions, and it shows through your home. And it also shows through the fruit of the homestead, which we covered earlier. It shows through your children and the investments that you give to them. Like Chief had said about how he raised his youth to know home economics. You know, yeah, exactly. Where each homestead has its own way of operating. Some homesteads, their way of operating is copying other homesteads. Which brings us full circle. Trying to buy in by keeping up with the Joneses, quote unquote. Um, yeah, and I'm bent, unbowed, unbroken. Yeah, I like that. I like that family mission statement too. You know, House of Mocktab. So she says, "Ken, I learned the basics from my mom and my family. Didn't realize it was learning, but always in the kitchen. Or didn't realize I was learning, but always and fetching and hanging with the grandmas with while the men and children were elsewhere." Uh, Soft Arlene says, "I think we should go. I think we should go back to that." Um, oh, you're referring to Sister Kashia's comment? You know, yeah. Go back to what? Soft Arlene. Um, I'll wait till you answer. Imaquia says, "Okay, I see. One house may specialize in farming, and another tools for farming. Um, and I think about it each And as I think about it, each tribe of Israel name had its own function. Yeah, you know, and I was the house of Israel. That house produced, those tribes, but those tribes still came under that house. you're talking about the greater family. But yeah, the house represents what a person is actually doing and what feeds them and where their installment is. So this is another thing that um, we were speaking about too. Obviously, in order to produce something, you have to do something to get that result, right? And if you do it um, well, you do it based off of principles, then of course your name starts to grow because people know these people do this thing and they do it well. People like they would see me draw something and they're like, okay, um, I don't know how to do anything artistic, but talk to him over there. He can do it for you. And even if I didn't, like if I didn't have time or if I was busy with other projects, I'd be like, I I'm not able to do it. You have a time restraint, but that person over there, I know for a fact that they just asked me about if anyone's looking to hire an artist, and they can do the work. You know, so even with your recommendations, it's still an option. And if you co-sign someone and they turn out to be thorough, then that's also a sign that this person knows his stuff, because he knew where to recommend me. That's how certain people start businesses as well. They may not produce anything, but they are excellent networkers. They're good at spotting the value and talent in people and being like, okay, you need this thing done. So and so can do this part. So and so can do that part. And if you can delegate that task to these two people, then you can also do like they become consultants in a way. So I was like, oh, okay, these people are gonna good consultants. I don't know how to get that project done for you, but you talk to so and so, they can do it. And networks begin to form. You begin to form a web, but you have to be doing something. If you're not doing something, if people can't see your work, then it's like you're invisible, and you're walking around wondering why no one's going to give you a shot, but give you a shot at what? So it's good to do what you do, or like Chief would say, is what you be. It's not just what you're doing, it's what you be. So if I am an artist, or if I am a woodworker, or I'm an excellent mechanic, I'm a mechanic because I'm an excellent mechanic. I'm not a mechanic because I need money. That's a backwards way of doing it. Money comes to me as a result of me being what I am, as opposed to me going out and chasing money. So that's something that you could look at as well. Instead of trying to, I think Sister Charlotte said it earlier, she's refining her skills, as opposed to trying to fit someone else's mold. You're just being what you are, and people are flocking to what you are, as opposed to saying, "Well, I'll give you this, but first you gotta shape shift a little bit. Yeah, do a little dance for me." you know, um, Chief says, "Want some, get some. Bad enough, take some." That was my grandfather's motto. I guess that's our family. I guess that's our family crest. uh, Queer says, but while having its own way of operating, there is a common law that each household abides by. Um, I think you're talking about a collective or communal law, but I could be mistaken in Mokuya. So glad that if I am. Soft audience says go back to the young girls hanging with the older women, learning how to do the things that the women are responsible for. Yeah, yeah, we need women though. We need elder women because a lot of the older women are trying to be the young girls. They're trying to go backwards and compete with the young girls, and the other elder women are just ignored. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, you know. So yeah, we need women and young girls hanging around, but actually being brought up and nurtured by elder women. Shanda Joy says, okay, that makes sense, Queer. Just like DNA is organized by RNA into different sequences. Um, Sister Kashia, Sister Kashia says, ours growing up, the fighting knights, from Joshua 24:15. There is a metal inscription of the scriptures nailed on the foot of my parents' home. All right. I don't know Joshua 24:15. You gotta pull us up on game. I don't know that one out of my head. Because she's agreeing with South Arlene, but it also must feel enriched with righteous words and not dysfunction. Exactly. Yeah, you need women. Chief Viewer said, gotcha, Safta. The thing is, a lot of grands in their 40s don't actually have much to impart. I see so many older females and older males with nothing to offer, stuck in teen mentality. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Talk to speakers as it relates to home economics. I allow the youth to use the self-check stations at grocery store and practice making transactions with the cashiers. Yeah, you could even help them plan out like what y'all to buy. you know, let them take note of the prices of things and even the fluctuation in prices, like understanding inflation. And how the price changes based on the market, and it's not like the supermarket trying to trick you to get more money. They might be doing that. I don't know. But they could actually tell. Sister Gashia, as for me and my okay, yeah, my grandfather would always say that. Always say that. Um, it would be that verse, and the other one was um, you have to, in order to worship. What is this? It said Yah is a spirit, so in order to worship Yah, you have to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And the other one is if you want to worship the Most High, then you have to first believe that He is and is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. That one was like, that was a staple. That was like the thing at the bottom of the email. It's at the bottom of every email. Yeah. Chibuya says it's sad, but sometimes the younger has to train the older to be the elder. Everything is topsy turvy. Now the young people don't even want to emulate older ones, let alone have a relationship with them. That's real sad, but it is true. You know, um, it reminds me of, I forgot where I heard it, but someone was telling a story of their grandma, like their grandmother couldn't wait for them to come home. I think it might have been a movie. Like when they were learning to read, their grandmother would always stress how important it is to learn how to read. And Brother Lowe, you probably know where this is from. But the grandmother would always, like, she would be excited, like, okay, you got to take out your book and let me help you read. And then, she would read along with him. And over time, he realized that she didn't know how to read. And she was learning the same time that he was. And it was like an example of the younger having to teach the older. So every time, even though he was getting better at reading, he would deliberately read slower so that she could catch on. I don't know what show or movie that was from, but I do remember that being like an example of the younger having to teach the older. But in this context, like having to teach your elder, the spook who sat by the door. Yes, that's it. I know you know. Yeah, you had to know that one. But yeah, um, in this context, the younger people who, you did a breakdown. That's how I know about the movie, but I didn't remember where it was from. Give thanks for that. Um, that's a good movie. I gotta rewatch that. But yeah, in this context, you're teaching your elders manners. Like you have to tell people who are older than you, that's not the way you talk to people, and you have to deal with the teenage. Well, I do what I want. you know, you can't tell me that this is my mouth. I can't. Come on, give me my fries. Where's my change, Gladys? you know? Oh, TGL says, but nonetheless, I agree, Safta. Fortunately, Anu already moves that way. As for the world, we can only impart a gem from the distance. Yeah, it's like trying to save someone who's drowning. My brother used to work as a lifeguard, and he's like, they would always tell us that don't just swim right up to someone. You got to be prepared to knock someone out just to save their life. You know, don't be afraid to shove them or give them a gentle nudge, a not so gentle nudge, just to get them out of that shock. So you could put the little lifesaver over them. It's like, yeah, come on, you ain't drowning me. So they're looking for something to push up on. Whoops, doing too much pushing. They're looking for something to push up on to keep them out of the water, and they will use you because they're not thinking clearly. They're in that animal state. How many people do you see drowning every day? And you see them from a distance, like that person needs help, and you try to befriend them, and they will not hesitate to step on you to move up. Yeah, true, South Sudan. I could have been one of those olders before I came to Ando. Yeah, same here. A lot of us could have, because again, you're building amongst a group of families. You're not building in isolation to where you start to be like, am I crazy? Maybe I need to lighten up. I didn't see the air quotes. Yeah, maybe I need to lighten up. Knock them out to save their life. Yeah, that's a serious statement. That's shock therapy. That shock, yeah, that shock therapy is often needed in attempting to give the truth to lost people of this planet. Yeah, because sometimes you gotta let people. Sometimes I just let people tire themselves out. Like they want to argue, and I'm just like, yeah, you finished? They off for the puppet, but they out of ammo. They got nothing else to say. Sometimes they keep repeating the same statement over and over. It's like, yeah, you waiting for me to give you some emotion so you can keep going, but I ain't doing it. You can run out of gas in a minute, and then I can talk some sense into you. If I'm patient enough to do it. But if it ain't worth it, then I'll leave you there talking to yourself. They start looking around. You all see that? Trying to bring other people in. Yeah, you running out of emotions, bro. Yeah, I let people just flounder. You can just stand there and scream until you tire yourself out like a toddler. Yeah, go to bed. You need some milk. Go to bed. Yeah, okay. So next sentence says, but before we go on to the next sentence, right? The house represents what a person is actually doing and what feeds them, where the installment is. So what does your house represent in the community? Or what will your house represent in the community? And that basically goes back to what are you doing? If you're doing something consistently enough, an ecosystem is going to grow around it. You're going to find your niche, or at least by practicing and refining your niche, you're going to find yourself in a place in the community. Or you're going to be placed there by your elders. They're going to be, all right, you do this, and it would make sense, for you to do that because of what you've already displayed that's inside of you. But if you're not doing anything, where do I put you? You know, where do I place this person? I see it every day when I'm on class calls. Um, the teacher says a lot, and then they say any questions or comments, and it's silent. Like, what's the teacher supposed to do with that? You know, besides starting to call names, like, okay, Johnny, tell me what you think about this sentence. Uh, uh, yeah, you thought you're just gonna sit there and do nothing. You know, a lot of people do that sometimes. They just sit there and they expect to be curated. And some of that speaks to their childhood, you know, especially with statements like children are to be seen and not heard. But if you say children will be seen and not heard, and at the same time you don't have like a clear transition into adulthood via rites of passage, when am I supposed to be heard now? Unless I just start rebelling out of the blue, which is usually around rites of passage age. You know, at puberty age, I start having, you know, my own thoughts and pulling from different philosophies outside of the home. Because if I repeat what you're saying, it's just like me not having my own voice. You know, you start getting into that. But if you have autonomy and you're able to, you know, communicate freely with your parents and express what's going on inside of you, then there's a different type of development that happens. But sadly, it rarely happens. You know, I've met some people from my youth who are able to communicate, who were able to communicate like peers with their parents. You know, and I had sort of that type of experience too. But I was just introverted. You know, I had my wacky, goofy side, but I didn't like. I spoke more like through actions. I used to emote more than I spoke, and that is basically moved from my feet and my hands up to my face. That's like the last stronghold. You know, anything that happens, I'm like, what you just say? You know, but yeah. But what does your house represent in the community? Let me get back to these comments too. Let's see. This is kid. LOL. I don't know what that laugh is from. Let's see. Knock 'em out to save a life. Chief Yuya says, do any of you women as an act something that happens post matrimony, or do you see it as masculine? We need some milk. But I'll leave that there, you know, for any takers. Or y'all can scroll up in the chat and see it. But I'll read everything else out loud and I'll leave that there. Okay. Kashio responded. Low, Chief, or no, Chief, being industrious and an active financial asset is a part of being able to manage a homestead. These qualities should be studied and practiced as early as possible. Yeah, yeah. A woman who is able to manage a homestead, like she is an asset. You know, it's something that is rare, is rarer than a lot of people may think, because you hear it a lot in feminist rhetoric. Like, oh, you think that women are just supposed to stay home and cook and clean? Like a woman's place is in the kitchen. Like, yeah, your place is home. Like, yeah, and you thinking that your natural role is somehow beneath you speaks to a different sort of sickness. Like, if you think that the thing that you're naturally supposed to do is somehow not cool, then what are you basing your standards on? Are you basing your standards on what successful men do? And you're saying, I should be doing that. I can do that better than they can. And you're abandoning your natural feminine sciences. You know, are you doing that? Chief, oh, the answer to the question, House of Anu represents what it is to be an Anu. We are the ones that always present consistent modeling for this kingdom and movement. We represent alpha members of the community. Yeah, no arguments there. Shalom says definitely not, Chief. Learning about. Oh, okay. That's an answer to Chief's question as well. And reiterate. That's not the reiteration. Uh, there we go. Do any of you women see being industrious and an active financial asset as something that happens post matrimony? Do you see it as masculine? All right. And Chandler Joy's response to that is definitely not, Chief. Learning about men in Anu has taught me that being industrious is a feminine trait that aligns with our expansive nature. An active asset brings value to a master's purpose. Yeah, industriousness is something that both men and women need to have. It's not necessarily solely feminine, but it is a trait that females need to have, and it's a trait that men need to have. Chief Yuya says, if only sisters claim to want to offer, if any sisters claim to want to offer themselves to assist me in being a multimillionaire and international power, I look for current evidence of their business acumen. I too listen with my eyes. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man. A lot of claims. A lot of claims. You know, I'm a boss. I'm the baddest. I'm the greatest. I'm a goddess. I prove it. I ain't see it yet. Yeah. Like, comment, and share from your local pixie dust dealer. Okay, okay, I think this is the last sentence. So to sustain and manage one's own house is to continue and sustain one's own will, you know. And this one hit home as well, because again, if you're on someone else's job, then you have less economy. I want to say economy because there is an economy of time and an economy of movement, but you have less economic resources to leverage um, in order to create the life that you want. You're on a certain, you're on a person's job building their vision, you know, for a certain period of time every day. So that's like 40 hours you lose, at least, you know, at least 40 hours less every day. And then that becomes, and then every strong, and then that becomes, or every week. And then that becomes every month, every year, you know, and decades go by, and you realize that you're you're not winning. You know, you're just keeping your head above water, and you may start to look for other people to hold down just to keep your head above water. You know, no matter how many times life punches you in the face, you don't get it. You just want to stay out in the ocean. Talk to a speaker says, I think being industrious and active, I think being industrious and active financial assets, I should be developed in childhood. I used to think it was masculine, but I loved pretending I was a businesswoman when I was a little girl. Yeah, that's not solely masculine. But again, you know, we take our cues from the environment that we're in. So if you see a bunch of men walking around in business suits, you think in order to do business, you got to wear a suit. Not necessarily. It helps, but you could have a lemonade stand. You don't need to. Um, you don't need to walk around with a briefcase. You know, you don't have to be boss baby. You know, the day you born, you. I don't know if his parents notice how well he dressed. You know, did you put that suit on that baby? It's like, I thought you did. You know, but yeah, you don't necessarily have to wear a suit or carry the like Chief would say, your clothing doesn't necessarily denote your culture. It is a cultural marker. You know, you walking around in kente cloth, it means that you may have invested at some level into that culture, but it doesn't mean that it is your culture or you're actively practicing it. You may just be playing dress up, you know, but, you know, not that you were talking about suits, but I do know where you're coming from with thinking that it's a masculine trait. So you 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 opted out. You may have opted out of it. I don't know. You may have did it. You may have had a lemonade stand. Um, Softer Onion says, "Ken, I agree with Akoti's. We are the economics. What we come with shows what we are about." Mm-hmm. It also is a note. It also tells where you come from. You know what kind of home you came from. If you see a sister who is comfortable laying around in a dirty house, it's like it's a red flag. Time to get out of there. You know? Imakuya says, "Peace, Chief. Being industrious is a feminine quality. I don't see it as masculine at all, and we should be industrious before marriage. And I guess in marriage. Okay, yeah, in marriage. Yeah. Why is it only feminine and not masculine in Makuya? Yeah, I'll leave it there. You know, why is it only feminine and not masculine at all? But yeah, in terms of industriousness, I always I always noted that my mother was sort of industrious, like but she could hustle. You know, she knew how to hustle different things, and I would hustle certain things too. Like I had a burnt CD business. You know, when I was in high school, like I would just put together. You give me a list of songs, and I would get like a stock of them. Which I did for my brother. My brother, he would like burn CDs for people. My mother would do it too, but my brother would do like DVDs. Like he would download stuff from Aries, like bootleg DVDs and sell them. And I would do the same thing with music CDs. What else did I do? I would sell drawings. That was another thing. Um, I don't know. I did all kinds of stuff. People were hustling in school. They'd sell like Pokemon cards and, and stuff. People were doing all kinds of stuff. GPS says, "Thank you for answering, sisters. One of the reasons I put that out there is because a lot of times it seems that righteous sisters are very passive when it comes to business and money management." Hmm. Yeah. A lot of people try to use righteousness to get out of dealing with money. You know, I don't believe in money as a concept. You know, yeah, you believe in, you know, keeping your heat on during the winter as a concept. You know, or coming over to my house because your power's out as a concept. You know, but yeah, that is like if there's no other comments or questions or anything, yeah, that is Shema getting into economics, um, which I'm really looking forward to. Oh, we got another one from the House of the Scholar. Brother Lowe says, "My house is the knowers. We seek answers in knowledge. Thus, we are the scholar." Yeah, all right. See, it wasn't a joke. Yeah, so thus we are the scholars, honing that skill to be strategists and tacticians in warriorhood, being like Boomy, my genius, holders of captaincy. All right, there we go. House of the Scholar. Chiquita says, I'm assured when I have women with fiscal/corporate sensitivity, if I can leave a meeting and have my woman carry on in my absence, representing my interests 100%, and I am a happy man. Jeez. Yeah, that, like I just pictured walking out of the meeting like, all right, what's next? You know, and the meeting's still going on. Like, it's cool to have. Brother Lowe and I were speaking about this actually in terms of traits, desirable traits in women, and we were talking about devotion. You know, because you see it come up a lot in Japanese culture, in Eastern culture, and it's distilled through a lot of the manga and anime that we would, you know, talk about, even some of the C dramas that he had introduced me to. And I realized that devotion is like when a woman is devoted to what you're doing, and when she sees that she can be of assistance and is actually like it delights her to be of assistance to you or to be useful to you, like that's like so like yeah, that's really that really draws me to a woman when I see that sort of trait. TVA says the same expectation goes to my children as well. Yeah, yeah, you know. But that's one of the beautiful things about building family. Oh man, low singing. We got karaoke in the chat. I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about having these types of discussions amongst people who are also building families or, you know, yeah, building families. You know, it's beautiful to see the different perspectives and how some people can see things from a certain way. You could see it, like you could see it, you know, in your mind's eye when they say it. And it's like, yeah, that would be beautiful, you know, as opposed to always talking about the experiences that you don't want or the experiences that you want to move away from. I advocate speaking about things you're moving towards and actually moving towards them. Yeah. Peace, Abutu. I don't know what's going on. You need devotion. Bless the children. Come on, sing it, just because you. Yeah, sing it in text now. Yeah, I can leave that alone. I go to karaoke. Oh, there we go. You can see it. Praise the teacher that brings true love to. I don't know what y'all singing. I don't know what song it is. I leave that alone. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Peace and much love to you. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Oh, okay. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Devotion. That would make me go look for that song. Anyway, y'all take